Hello, good morning, and welcome to another Tech Talk with T&E. I am your host, Terry, and there's my other host, the best one in the world, Elisabeth. And today we get to invite and have fun with Andrew Ansley. Do you go by your whole name?
Just Andrew.
Okay. All right. So it's funny, dude, when I try to search you in Facebook, the middle name is important on your Facebook.
It is. That's what one of the reasons.
Anyways, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's so funny to be, I feel when I sit back and think logically, I feel ahead of so many people with AI, but because there's like this golden opportunity zone, I guess, of like when to make the most money, it feels like I'm behind at the same time. So it's just this constant angst of me having to remind myself I'm not behind. There's still time to make money with AI. Don't worry.
But yeah.
Well, if you feel behind, then you can't even imagine how we feel.
Well, it's funny too, because Elisabeth asked me the other day, because I've got some pretty cool stuff. I've launched the conference app. I'm getting ready to launch our image builder app, our image creator app. And then I've got the schema generator. And Elisabeth asked me, well, when are we going to start monetizing this?
I know, right? That's the key. I talk to Robbie Rizek all the time, and we're partnering on a project. I mean, there's so many reasons to partner with the guy, but the main reason was, okay, you obviously know the monetization part of this, so he's so good at it, and he's going to be speaking at the conference, I believe.
Yeah, it's crazy what he's doing. I mean, it's just, and you got people like Simon Cornelius that hasn't popped his head up in a while, and some of the stuff he's doing, and it's just like, you know, I wish I had more time. I'm still dealing with clients, which I really wish I could just, you know, AI my life away and freaking just go down rabbit holes, because I've got a ton of stuff on my whiteboard. I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, but it is a lot of fun, and it is, you know, I do think it's a different world. I think, you know, especially small businesses, because we're asking our clients, you know, I went out to one of Elisabeth's clients last week, and, you know, they had a giant whiteboard. That's how they do all their jobs, is this giant whiteboard, and they move magnets from each section. I'm like, I can automate that pretty dang easy.
Yeah, for real.
So the meeting quickly turned away from the web design project to how do we automate this, and the 10 spreadsheets we use for each client and all this other stuff. And I'm like, just send it all to me, man. Well, we're there, we're ready. So, but
there we go. If you saw my R's darting around, I was trying to get Simon in here.
Good deal. Yeah, I was just talking about Simon. I was like, yep, he's been in his closet for a few months, and
I know it's perfect timing.
Exactly. So
there we go.
But how are you, Mr. Simon?
I'm doing great. It's like, Andrew, man, like every time you drop something in there goes an hour.
Exactly.
Oh, in the group or whatever.
Yeah.
I find so many good things late at night.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I've actually just, you know, I saw a Facebook post the other day, and I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So I put the whole Facebook post into Claude and said, can I build this? And Claude came back and said, heck yeah, just do this. I'm just like, okay, this is becoming too freaking easy.
The only limit is your imagination.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I mean, things, I tell people this, and I don't, the number sounds like crazy, but there's no way it's an exaggeration. I've been a coder basically all my life. That's what I went to school for. My productivity, and I'm not a great coder by any stretch of the imagination, but my productivity, no kidding, is at least 100x.
Yeah,
at least.
Well, and I tell people, I did a webinar. First time somebody asked me to come on and talk about some of the AI stuff that I'm doing, and I told them I feel like I kind of have an advantage like you guys, because I have a developer brain. I've been developing stuff since the 90s. You know, and so when because I've actually been building it in Claude, and then I'll take it and put it into Replit. So I do 99% of the heavy lifting in Claude, and it'll give me all the files to put it in Replit, and saving tons of freaking money that way. But it's interesting, because when I'm helping another person that just doesn't think the same way, and I can see the struggle. I can see because he's hitting brick walls. Oh, I didn't even think of that. And I was like, I get that. And it's so, but I think, that I just put everything out on a whiteboard or my little electronic tablet before I even start to think about what I want it to do. Because I like going to the end result and working backwards is the way I've always kind of developed.
Good old vibe coding, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but it is a lot of fun. I mean, I redid my whole freaking schema class, actually my whole on-page class, and then redid all my templates, redid all this stuff, and then pretty much put schema.org into Claude and, said, what am I missing? Help me finalize this, blah, blah, blah. And after it was all done, I was like, can I create a schema generator with my templates and the way I do stuff? And so that's been the exciting thing. It's freaking, and I've got 5 people out there testing it right now. And it's just like, holy shit, and I've always wanted to build something like that, but I could never get the research and the scraping and the stuff that takes the time to do this stuff. And, and finally freaking Claude figured it out. And I was like, okay, this is freaking cool.
Heck yeah.
The other thing I like to do, and I didn't come up with this, I forget who came up with the term, is the LLM Council, where you have, and I'll do it for content, I'll do fact checking. I was doing some content. I said, okay, what makes this unique? Because anyone can spit out AI content. I've got my content pretty dialed in there. But then the question came up is, well, what makes this unique? There's like 100 other people out there with the same stuff, like a roof repair Dallas or something. Well, what makes it unique? Well, it's like nothing. So then you go off and you have AI, and you can go off and like spawn off like Gemini and ChatGPT and whoever. And I use OpenRouter for that. And it goes off and finds nice little, sometimes local facts, right? So it will bring all that back, and then the orchestrator assembles all that going, oh yeah, there's some pretty good stuff here, and it takes it from each of these agents that found the stuff and then consolidates like, whoa. And it's like, I would have never come up with that. Never. Right. And then we've been doing this stuff for a few minutes now, right? And it's like, dang, like, and just a few years ago, you would have paid someone to write like $200.
Oh, exactly. We had somebody give us a bid for the conference app that I wanted to build, and it was like 15 grand.
Yeah.
And I built it in about a week, and so, and it was, it's, I don't want to show it yet just because it's not quite done, but it's set up to, go out and freaking, schedule networking events, schedule restaurants, it's got all the freaking restaurants around the area listed. You can, reserve reservations. It's just freaking, I was like, hey, I want to be able to do this and this. And then, like you said, it throws in, well, I think you should do this. Cause I love saying, what is it missing? What can enhance it? What can make it better? And then you come back and it's like, holy shit. But then you also have to keep it on track because it'll go into phase 2 and 3 pretty freaking quick. You're like, no, we're not done with this first part yet.
Yeah, you have to give it good guardrails. Guardrails are key. And I see Chris C joined him, and he's like becoming one of these code ninjas.
He
like,
is.
whoa.
And that's what's so fun about it. I mean, I'm almost freaking ready to just say, what? The whole freaking conference is all about AI and automation.
It almost is, like, even if you don't say that it is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it has to be too.
So, like, it's so exciting and so fun. And so I think that's what people want to learn more about.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep, for sure.
Let's go play.
Yep.
Play. So what were you planning on? I know it's a moving scale, Mr. Simon, but what were you thinking about talking about it?
I'm doing content, and let's see, I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't even know there was a session coming up. I'm not on Facebook much.
I know. We need to start texting Simon individually.
Yeah. I've got content. I'm doing some stuff, and I'm a hat tip to, like, I know Andrew and Chris C are on here. There's some guys in our team who are like throwing ideas around. One of the biggest pains I've had in the past is writing like service page content. Like say, I don't know, leak repair Dallas, or like hail roof damage repair Houston or something. And I've never really figured out how to write the content automatically, because I just do it from experience. I mean, we've all done that, right? Or how do you write the content page? So basically, without giving away the whole presentation, is there are certain blocks that go on the page in a certain order. So if you have, say, a cosmetic dentist, the reader or the search intent hat tip to Marty Marion. And if you guys haven't seen him before, who's listening, read his stuff, because it really changed my whole outlook on how to write content. So cosmetic dentists, they need to be romanced and give a story and like, here's the transformation. If you've got a leaky pipe and your toilet's flooding all over the place, they don't need to see a story. They need to go, hey, how soon can you get here? So the flow on the page is different based on the niche, right? And even on the service. So I tried to figure out, and I had a chat with AI over a period of weeks, going, how do I get my thought process into a logical format? And it came up with these blocks, and like basically go to a buffet and pick out blocks of content, or like purpose of the block purpose, I should say. Then you rearrange them, then you put the content in it afterwards. Like, oh, that's how I think. So now I've got that down where I can produce my content pages for service pages, like pretty quickly. Like, oh, this is some good stuff here. Good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So welcome, Chris. Sorry, guys, we haven't officially welcomed yet. So
happy to be here. I actually, Simon and I were kind of jamming on the whole service page stuff recently, and I got a slightly kind of different take to it, but I love Simon's approach to it as well. But I've been I built a system where we can basically spin up an entire website's worth of content in one pipeline, when one execution run basically, and there's sort of an order of operations of how things work. But the idea is like I love the 80-20 rule for everything, right? Like, yep. I think there's always a balance to be struck. Like, you can really go down the rabbit hole of trying to perfect a service page or a location page or something, but ultimately, I mean, I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, right, in the clients that we typically deal with on an everyday basis, like 90% of businesses just don't even have the basic foundation in place, right? Like, they don't even have all service pages, they don't have location pages, like they just don't even have the basics. So for me, it's like the 80-20 rule is just like, get all the pages up, get all the architecture, the structure, and the internal linking up, and do that in the least amount of friction, in the most efficient way possible. And then you can kind of go down the rabbit hole of like super optimizing any one given page based off of like, okay, where did all these pages land in terms of rankings? How are the rankings settling? And once that dust settles, you can kind of cherry pick where to kind of draw your focus on. So I kind of built out this entire pipeline. The way it works essentially is you got, you're kind of like your core identity pages, which are like your homepage and about us page. And those are pages where they generally a little bit more content heavy, especially about us and things like our process or why choose us. Like, these are very content heavy pages, and you don't want all this information everywhere. So those kind of pages are built out first. And then you build out all of these service pages, because they're very, the focus is fairly isolated on each service. And then the homepage is built last, because you don't want to repeat go too far in depth into any one service, because there's this whole service page dedicated for that. And so there's kind of like a deduplication, or like I call it inter-website redundancy check that happens, where you can basically just say, the homepage is the last thing that we're building. We don't need to talk too much about the business, because there's already an about us page. We don't have to talk too much about this service, because there's already service pages for that. And then the homepage ends up becoming like a navigational page, and the content's really dialed in for that, and it serves its purpose, and it's well optimized for the keyword and all that kind of stuff. So with that kind of like an approach, and again, we're kind of going back to the AI stuff. This is why AI is so cool, right? Because you can do this whole thing, and like I literally could just put in a couple of keywords and click a button, and within 15 minutes, I got a 10-page website content completely fleshed out, right? And so it's pretty cool to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of stuff is really where you can kind of leverage a lot of efficiencies and stuff like that. So, but then kind of going, then I'll probably end up building like specific tools or processes just to kind of go really deep in any one aspect, right? And start to kind of do more optimizations there. But I like that 80-20 rule kind of spread, because I think that's kind of a good way, at least at the beginning, if you're starting to build out stuff, right? Like approach it from that 80-20 rule and then start to kind of expand from there, kind of thing.
Chris, are you using WordPress themes like Avada, Divi, Elementor to build the pages now, or HTML?
Right now, my team kind of implements everything, but I was in the process of building an AI builder, which would use either HTML or that. There's actually we use Bricks Builder for all of our websites, and there's a very structured way that Bricks kind of creates its code and stuff, so you can actually have AI build that structured code and build the page in Builder that way. So I was actually in the process of doing that, but I max out my Claude usage just on the projects that I have going on right now. I just don't have enough usage to do too many projects at once. So I have to kind of cherry pick what I focus my time on, and I feel like that's kind of a big pain point in the AI world that we're in now. Is just like you can now do so much. Like the knowledge is all out there, the tools are out there. You can literally go in like a million different directions. And it's like, how much energy, mental energy, can you really expend on any one thing? And like, how much time do you have in one day, and how many credits do you have available to you? That's like the limiting factor these days.
That's a drug.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
It's a drug.
Exactly. Hey, one of the things that you guys might want to test that we found is just tremendously successful is doing the 3-point bullet page summary at the top.
Yeah.
Super powerful. And then, of course, I've always been a believer of FAQs and, of course, FAQ schema. But it's crazy where they're pulling content from, and it's it's all over the freaking map.
I've noticed that a lot of AI overviews like to pull from those kind of key summary sections.
Yeah, especially. So we got and we don't do it on the homepage, but we'll do it on the service pages. We'll do it on all the blog posts. And it's just, for some reason, they just, like you said, they pick it up quickly. And, we have prompts that say, following EAT guidelines, blah, 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 that kind of crap. And the first month nowadays, we're typically just going into content and repurposing old content because it's pretty much shit. Yep. And then, turning around and just freaking having Claude scrape the system and say, what is missing. We're using an AI or an automation tool for content called Team AI. And it's a tool that you can put all the tools in it, Claude, chat, everything, and kind of pick and choose. So we got Claude in there as default, but we're completely changing how we're doing content and images. So
on content,
that was pretty cool.
Since you mentioned content, now I've seen people. You can tell. Pretty much any website that's got an SEO company, you can tell the AI has been generating blog post content. It's 4,000 words. Mm-hmm. It's like streams and streams of paragraphs. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, Terry, is that AIs don't want to go through. They're lazy, kind of like me. They want to be efficient with token usage. So if you have to crawl through like 1,000 words to get a what do you call it? Not a snippet.
A summary.
No, what's it called? The passage. Right? To get to the passage.
Yeah.
Make it easy for them. So to your point, I just took a note, Terry, that you said the 3-point summary at the top. So I'm going to see if I can start doing that. But answer the search intent right out the gate is another thing, right? Exactly. And also, in the H2 sections, I will use a lot of tables and lists, and usually they're very short sentences, like 2 or 3 sentences for a section, then a tables and bullet lists, because AIs can really read through that because it's structured, and it's very easy for them to understand that. So that cuts down your word count and makes it really easy to scan, and you can hit all of the intent behind the intent principles too. The other thing I picked up on, I didn't even know this was a principle, it's called the DRY principle, DRY, which apparently is a coding thing, and I've never heard of it in my life, but it's a real thing. So DRY, basically, if you talk about hail damage on your roof, like how hail damages your roof, don't talk about it later on in the page like how hail damages your roof. It's already been covered.
Yeah.
So if you remove all the duplicate stuff then your content gets more efficient, and then the AIs can just like gobble it all up. So that's one of my improvements I've done this year, I think. No, yeah, the last few months.
Yeah, and it's definitely, we did test that, one page was just basically titles, bullet points, and it freaking did tremendously well, except it looked like crap.
Yeah.
So, let's mix in some paragraphs here and there, but yeah, it's completely freaking changed the game, because it is, I tell people all the time, it's not only about crawl, but it's the speed of crawl. I mean, I just responded to Holly's post this morning about, Gary Alls came out and said Google's being selective about what content they index. I'm like, bull crap, they got a bandwidth problem. They're just freaking trying to survive. They're not paying attention to this page is better than this page. They're just freaking, and it's just, that's the problem. They all are going to have this problem. That's why AI is so good, because it just scrapes. It doesn't really store that much data. It just scrapes and moves on. And Google's trying to do 40 different things with each page data. And
I think it's more down to what makes it different. To my point earlier, is like you've got 100 pages about hail damage, roof repair. What makes them different? You've got 100 pages in Dallas. What makes it different? So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. If I was Google, is, well, which ones are more valuable that give me that answer to search intent? And if it's 100 the same, like I only need one or two. So.
I feel like as SEOs though, I think we got to be very cognizant of like how we, like, whether we are overthinking things sometimes, because I was doing an analysis for a client and looking through some keywords, looking at SERPs and stuff like that, and I saw competitors that were outranking our client. And if you looked at the content, I think I shared this. I don't know if I shared this with you, Simon, or if it was with somebody else. I think it was with you, actually, Simon. I shared, there was like a page that was ranking, and it had literally like a paragraph of text, maybe like 3 or 4 sentences. And if you looked at like what the query was, it definitely required more explanation than 2 or 3 sentences. But this particular website was ranking with the minimalist of content. Right, we're talking about
what they have hidden though. I've tested that back and forth, and it's especially after the helpful content update. Again, that was also the light content update. Yeah, so
that's actually where I was going with it, Terry. Is like helpful content update has changed things significantly, because now a page has to have such a laser focus on a very tight word data set. So it changes things in a few ways, right? One is the page doesn't necessarily need 1,000 words of copy. It could actually rank really well for its subset of keywords with far less content, right? And so we may be over engineering some of this stuff because we're thinking like SEOs, and we're saying, what makes this unique, and how far down, like how can we get topical coverage and all this stuff. But some of this stuff may actually not even matter as much as we think it does. The other thing too is that it changes is the game changes slightly from this content production where we historically, right, we talk about like skyscraper content, and we get a writer to write a 2,000 word article, and there's all this keyword and semantics incorporated to it, secondary keywords, LSIs, and all this other stuff. But helpful content changes things where now you're really focusing on a much smaller data set per page. And so now the game is not necessarily all this crazy like comprehensive optimization. It's more of like a smaller optimization set of things you got to do, and then more pages you got to build out to cover all of the entire data set that you might be looking after, right? And so now it's more of a quantity versus quality, I guess, which is kind of a weird thing to even say out loud, because that's kind of been like the opposite of what we focused on previously, right? Which is weird, but that's kind of the way things are moving. So I think like, that's where you could probably get a lot of leverage with AI, is where before it used to be very costly to spit out 20, 30, 40 articles because you're trying to aim for 2,000 or whatever, however many words. But now if you're only doing 500 to 600 words, maybe even less, because these guys were ranking with 3 sentences, right? So if it's not a content volume, or at least a word volume per page, and it's more of like, how can I get all these pages published that focus on very isolated keyword data sets? How can I get those out as quickly as possible? Like, that's a really practical application for AI, right?
Chris, didn't you find an issue, not an issue, but some quirk in Search Console where a page stopped ranking for a whole bunch of keywords? What
That's
happened
the
there?
helpful content stuff that I was talking about. If you look at Ahrefs data and you look at August 2024, you look at any page, quite frankly, it's like pretty much every page on the internet.
Yeah.
August 2024, and compare that to any point in the recent past. So I'm talking about within the last like 6 months. The total number of keywords per page is dropped by like 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
So what a page used to rank for like 1,500 keywords, it's ranking now for like 100 keywords. Like it's a significant drop, but that's basically the helpful content update at play, where like, and this is one thing I really didn't fully understand about the helpful, like, because when you think about what the hell is helpful content, right? But it makes sense when you look at it from just this keyword data set perspective, because you can't possibly rank for like 1,500 keywords and be highly relevant for every single one of those keywords. It doesn't make any sense practically, right? So there's obviously statistically like a very small number of those keywords that you're hyper relevant for. And so that's what the helpful content update did, is it basically just excluded you from all those keywords that are just more like tangentially related, but not hyper focused on the actual content that you're writing about. And so all those keywords vanished. And so if you want to recover those keywords, you need entire new pages that are laser focused on the keywords that you lost. And that might mean an extra page, or might mean like, a dozen other pages. Who knows, right?
I call that time frame the internal linking update, because that's when the old days ended of having a page about web design and including links to SEO, including links to email marketing, including links over here to blah blah blah. And and I still tell people today, as far as ranking in Google, I still think internal linking is the number one factor. So. And helpful content update did just that. So I just took on a client last week, and he had that typical drop you were just talking about. I just verified, you didn't redo your website in August of 2024, did you? No, we didn't. All right. So, and now we have a plan for that. So, but yeah, it was really, everybody talked about the EAT update and EEEAT update. And I'm like, it was all the helpful content update that got everybody. So, and people just didn't know how to deal with it, because like you said, they were ranking for 200 or 300 keywords. Now they're ranking for 20 or 30, which they should have been in the first place anyways. That's what they don't understand. Your web design page shouldn't be ranking for SEO in Phoenix. Yeah. That's just the way it is. And so, yeah, but good point. So,
did you guys look into the impact of the pagination of results? Because I know that once Google changed how it handles pagination, there was a sharp drop off on ranked keywords for everybody. So I wasn't sure how much of an impact you trace what we're just talking about, the drop, to that event rather than just the helpful content.
That was what, August, September last year?
Yep.
Yeah. So I've noticed in Search Console, almost across the board, is that people running like rank reports, you can tell like, best plumber, like Houston or something. Those impressions have gone down, like just dropped off a cliff. Let's see it night and day, right? So then you can see, it was funny because like every Thursday you see a little spike in the impressions. Every Thursday, like okay, someone's running a rank checker, and I think it's had an impact. But if you look at the ones that you were really pulling in like traffic from, like say in the top 20, that really hasn't changed. But you have to get rid of all that rank tracker noise, where it's like now it's cleaner, and I think the baseline is easier now to work with, because there's not just noise of artificial scrapes coming down the pipe. But yeah, good point.
I agree 100%. It is a cleaner process now to do stuff. So and that's one thing that I liked about it. But yeah, it was almost just like you said, Chris, almost every freaking site can, you guarantee you're going to have a drop off then. So
has anybody been able to either substantiate or not the I think it was, who was it? I think it was Carolyn. I don't know I don't remember her name.
Carolyn Holtzman.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she had some I don't know if it was a blog post or something that she published that said that like the anchor links at the top, like the jump links that we always add in like the table of contents type stuff, that was negatively impacting traffic and rankings and stuff like that. I was really, somebody actually brought this to my, I think it might have been Steve Toth actually. He might have messaged me about this, but I thought it was really interesting because I did remember seeing that, and at the beginning I just kind of dismissed it because I thought, this is kind of too early to really get any sort of definitive answer on it. But she apparently used Google's own documentation pages to corroborate that claim, because she said that if you look at the Google Docs pages and the traffic and rankings to them, like they dropped off, and they heavily used these anchor links in these table of contents type stuff. So that was like one of the things that she used to kind of help to substantiate that claim. But I don't know that. I mean, we use those types of anchor links all the time, and I haven't really seen anything in my data to suggest the same thing. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen anything like that.
Yeah, we stopped doing table of contents a long time ago. So just, we did, and I don't know if it ever affected negatively or not. I just, just personally, I just didn't like the look of them, and I never really understood the purpose of them. If you only have 1,000 pieces of content, 1,000 words on a page, what do you need a table of contents for? But it makes sense. I do know that, when depending on internal links, you don't want your internal links at the very top, because now you're just taking people off your page immediately, so to speak, so, but it kind of makes sense, but yeah, I never did anything as far as investigating it or anything.
No, if you think that most people just scan, they're not reading every single word, they're scanning. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to why I love tables, because I'm a lazy reader, right? I don't want to read through 2,000 words of content. Just give me some tables, some bullet points. Where's my sections? Where's the H2s? This is what I'm looking for right here. Boom, I've got it. I'm done. Get out. Mm-hmm. So these table of contents is, man, I have to like click on this, and on mobile they don't work too well, because now it takes up real estate on your screen. Yeah. With a table, like what? So, and there was an issue. I forget what it was. Someone on the Facebook or Twitter somewhere said that there was an issue with the table of contents. With, I forget what it was. It wasn't a plugin fault. It was the actual format or the links. I forget. So it basically said, if you don't need to use it, don't use it. So I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah, and that's just, I don't know, the page summary thing makes too much sense. I mean, I first saw it just scrolling around the internet, big news sites have it on every single page. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So, did a prompt, hey, scan this page and give me the 3-point. We actually tried 5-point and 3-point, and 3-point we actually saw a better result from. So, but yeah, it's a pretty simple fix to, add to, especially pages that have been stagnant for a long time.
And you can do your topic sentence at the top. I talked about that last year, and those helped. Yeah, so topic sentence, like answer the search intent. You can boil down to answer the search intent. Like, enough said. Do it and move on.
Yeah, I put all that stuff in schema.
Yeah.
So, well, that's great. So you're going to talk about. Let me see. Let me bring up the schedule. So both of you guys are actually in the breakout rooms this year. So it's going to be freaking awesome.
Just don't put me in the same time as Andrew.
No.
Because I missed his presentation last year because I think there was someone else. Man, it's tough to choose.
It is for sure, and I think I did it okay this year. So you're in the same group as Elias. Robbie Riz, though, I mean, you might miss some of Robbie Riz. Let me see what I can do about that.
Dang it. Well, it's never going to work out. Let's be honest. You know, 'cause you go like,
So,
now if you got like
then of course the tech day, both of you guys can be involved with the tech day. So
yeah,
the tech day is just obviously the best day.
I mean, I think I was in fact talking on an internal Slack group this morning about the best way to learn something is to teach it. Right. So if you're learning about AI coding or like want to build an app, right, you can go ask ChatGPT, whoever your AI of choice. Is you can ask it and it will build something for you, but did you really learn anything, right? And it's like, oh, this doesn't work quite well. What happened? Then you give up because you were vibe coding. But if you can get some really good stuff. Then you got your false, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like you got this false sense of clarity and confidence that it was really good because you were doing it the right way, but you actually weren't. And then there's like Claude Code, for example, has these courses you can take, and people have courses on how to get certified and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you can read that, but who's got the time to read it? But if you really want to get good, the best way to do something is to learn it and implement, make mistakes, and then teach it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
I mean, it's like, Andrew, you've been teaching this stuff, and like, what the heck? Like a year ago, we met up, and he was showing us some stuff with AI. Like, whoa! I felt like I was back in kindergarten. Right, so now I rolled up my sleeves, got busy, and it's like now we're teaching each other. Like, yeah, this is great. So for people that are watching, don't be an island. Like, don't feel like you have to figure this stuff out. Find a group. And teach each other, like, hey, I learned this. What's an LLM council? Well, tell me about it. Oh, it does this. Oh, really? Wow. And you've read about it 10 times before, but never really understood it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if you look at the learning pyramid, and I put this in all my presentations, you have like the absolute worst way to learn anything is to listen to like a podcast. Not against this podcast, but like an audio book. The worst way to learn something. Next worst way is like reading a book, right? Then you have video, then you have workshops, then you have implement and build yourself. But then at the very top, which most people don't do, is to like teach it to someone else.
Yeah.
That is the best way of learning.
Yeah, and I've always believed that, especially if you're at that point that it's that you feel like you can help somebody through it. Whether you're at the point of success, as far as I hate the word mastering. But, where you get to a point of like one of the big things I talked about in that webinar is just, when I first started this thing, I couldn't believe how much, and it wasn't a lot of money. I mean, I put that in relative terms, but it was, $500, $1,000. But then I started building the whole thing in Claude before I started actually building it. I put the idea in Claude, and Claude worked the whole thing out and then gave me the files that you can put in Replit or Lovable or, Claude AI or Claude Code. But that was the biggest thing is, just use AI to help you take your idea to the next 10 levels.
Yeah.
But you also have to keep it within a path. The very first one I did that I even showed at the spring training digital, I haven't touched again because it's too big of an animal. I need to go back in and say, we need to take these in at least 2 to 3 phases, maybe, because it went off the rails, so to speak. It's cool, but now it's like testing this thing is just like, oh my gosh, there's 40 friggin' moving parts, and so, and that's one of the things that I caution people with is because, going down a rabbit hole is okay if you have rabbit holes, the same hole. When that rabbit hole goes into splitting off into different holes, man, you need to back up and say, whoa, wait a minute. So, but it is really cool that you can, that's why I love AI. I did before Andrew caught on this morning, I put in Claude, who is Andrew Ansley? And it came up with this thing. And then I did the thing in ChatGPT, and 5.4 said, Andrew's also a speaker at SEO Spring Training.
Wow.
So Claude didn't have that, but Chat did. So, so you do different things and use different things use different tools for different purposes, I guess is the thing. But You know, I mean, just that's what people should be using it for. We have one guy that's in this networking group of ours, and we haven't seen him in a couple months. He's probably changed his mind now, but he refused to use AI on any kind of client sites. And I'm like, dude, you're going to get buried, man. You know, he's still paying $30 a page for content. He's
Wow.
you know, I'm like, you know, you're going to get buried. And, you know, I don't ever know what happened to the guy because they haven't even had a meeting in a couple months. But, you know, that was just one of the things that, you know, you can be, you know, protective of it, but you also have to realize that if you don't move with it, you know, you're going to get left behind. And AI, just like Andrew and I were talking about at the beginning, you know, we're building all these things, but are we making any money? Are we doing it to, you know, monetize and help our family and stuff? A lot of the stuff that we built was to, you know, help Solterra, obviously, but it also would help others. So, you know, that's always the biggest thing that you talk about and think about.
You know, AI has been on, let's see, when did I first hear about ChatGPT? It was like 2022. When did it first come out? And it was really bad. You know, had the AI, it was the, when I did images, they had like 4 fingers or 8 fingers. When was that? 2022? And 2022?
2.6 was 2 years ago because Elisabeth and I went to an event, Master ChatGPT in a weekend in Miami. And it was the biggest freaking flop conference I've ever seen in my life.
Only 2 years ago? I could have sworn.
I think probably closer to 3 because I know when it first came out, we were all excited, and I was trying to show my daughter, who was in high school at the time, how it could like write her papers, and she was like, she thought it was the stupidest thing ever. But then after like a month or so, I noticed her going in and using my computer to write stuff.
Busted.
So.
It's yeah. I can understand the guy's hesitance who said he doesn't want to use AI because it was bad in the beginning. It would like hallucinate like crazy. Like there was no way I can put this stuff on, and I even used it to write some dental content, and the dentist came back and said, well, it doesn't look like the writer knew what they were writing about. Like, it looked okay to me, but it's like, okay, I mean, I looked at it and made some tweaks, but it was still bad. So I can understand the hesitation. But man, with all the tools we have, and you have other AIs fact-checking stuff, and like you have, it's like no different than when you have, and I spoke at, where was I? Oh, in Dallas last. What was that conference in Dallas? Rockstars. Yeah, Rockstars, right? And no, it was a meetup I went to, and I said, look, here's your AI is basically like people. You've got five people in a room, and you're having a meeting about what to write about, and everyone has a slightly different perspective. Well, those are your different LLMs, and then you have the meeting organizer is taking input like Terry, what do you think about this? And Elisabeth, what do you like about this? And Andrew, and you're going around the room getting inputs, and then they're also sharing ideas with each other. Like Elisabeth might go, well, Chris, that's a really good idea. I like how you did that. Like, yeah, how about we do this? So it's no different really than people in a room talking, and that's just an AI. And when you get that harmony, I mean, that's like 1 + 1 is 11. It's just like, that's where you take off. So yeah, if you're not using AI the right way, then you are definitely losing out. You are.
I agree 100%. And it's, you know, I still think personalizing it, you know, all that stuff is super, super important. You know, we're even taking, you know, pages that have fallen off, and I'll put them back in, and I'll say, hey, Claude, what the hell? This page keeps falling out of index. Why? You know, and just see what it comes back and says, you know. So, you know, that's the biggest thing is, you know, we don't need to sit there and, you know, test this and test this, you know, let's change the H1 and, you know, a couple H2s, you know, to see if this moves the needle. Now it's just like, what is this page missing for not only Google and all the search engines to like it, but AI overviews? What is it missing? And you'll be surprised what it comes back with. You really will. And
I found the same thing, Terry, with Search Console issues. AI Claude is great. If you just tell it like, here's a Search Console report. I got all these pages that are, you know, like soft 404 or something like that, or and you just don't know how to deal with it. What I like about WordPress, right, is you can go into WordPress. There's under settings. No, it's under tools. There's a site health report you can get. you can just copy to clipboard, and it basically gives Claude or the AI like pretty much a pretty good overview of like your tech stack on that site. Just paste that in and be like, these pages are SOF 4404. Can you help me figure this out? And like, it not only will help you figure it out, but it also give you like functions.php code you can just copy and paste into the thing. We fixed so many technical Search Console issues that way. And it's so much easier. Whereas like before, we'd kind of, there's times where I'd be scratching my head, be like, I don't know why the hell this is doing this thing, right? And it's like, it's just so much easier these days with AI in the picture.
It is. When I use SEO Power Suite as one of my main audit tools, and I'll take the audit report from SEO Power Suite, and I'll just freaking throw it in there and say, create me a project plan to fix all these errors and all this other stuff. And, and that's where it really gets fun, especially for, look, I set up everything in my company. I mean, that's one of the things I'm adamant about. I do all the onboarding, I do all the setup. After that, go for it. But, so the setup part of it, especially, depending on like the schema generator I built, the onboarding system for the schema generator is like, damn, I need to put that into my company. It's just my onboarding system. So, because that's the biggest thing is, that first month, I tell people that first month is so freaking critical. And you can do so much in those first 30 days. Unlike 2 years ago, when you got to order 6 pieces of content, that's going to cost $180. I got to go out and get all the, I got to set up the IFTT syndications. I got to go out and get all the citations. I got to build all these authority stacks, all this stuff. We still do, but now we do it more automated because it's just like, here's the guy, here's the address, go, and that type of stuff is the onboarding is, it's all content. I don't even look at links until month 2. I don't even freaking look at any external links.
And the beautiful thing too, Terry, is like all that stuff that you're talking about is like it's your brain, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're the guy, you're the specialist guy, you know exactly what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. But then having that handed over to a set of VAs or team members and making sure that they don't screw it up is a whole other thing, right? And that's like, in the past it's been a challenge of like operations and how do you standardize and put things into SOPs and make sure that it's very clear for people to follow so they don't fuck it up down the road, right? Yeah. But it's like AI changes that completely because like for me, what I've been focusing on, right, is I've got a lot of my processes now going into a user interface that basically my team just fills out a form and it does everything in the back end and spits out an end deliverable or whatever. And I know it's done perfectly every single time because it's programmed that way, right? It's not left to human, to human whims or whatever. It's very deterministic, and that helps to standardize everything. And then, so like, whereas before you'd have to be like a kind of like a really good operations person to know how to structure things like that, which I was never. Was one of my big pain points. Now. Basically like proceduralizing everything in my agency has been so much easier now because everything's just programmatically done, right? So there's really, and I've noticed a significant increase in quality outputs, all that kind of stuff. And then also that translates into better outcomes for the client. So it just, it improves everything the entire way through, right? Which is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of my first things I did, especially with Claude, I was a chat GPT guy, and so I just started testing Claude now. So 80% now on Claude, but I love taking my current SOPs and throwing it in and say, what's missing? Where's the holes? Where's the gaps? Where's, what can we do better and more efficient? What can I automate? And that's the type of thing that especially I think agency owners, need to pay attention to is that's what you should be utilizing it for, especially right out of the gate. This is what we currently do. This is my current process. What do we not need to do anymore? I mean, that was one of the big things. What can I, especially around images. Images was always our freaking clog in our pipeline. We can write good content very quickly, very fast. but images was always the Achilles heel. You know, do we go to deposit photo? Do we have AI freaking automate all this stuff? You know,
and don't forget, Terry, don't get sued by someone for putting an image up.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't get sued about that happened to us last year, by the way. So that was one of the first things that I built was an image generator for us, you know, and it was really cool because I had no idea how many different image generators in AI there were, because I hadn't gone down the image rabbit hole. I was content. And so when I built this image generator, Claude's like, oh, you can do this and you can do this. I would put this one as priority because in your niches, this is going to be a better image. And I was just like, go for it. And now it's like freaking, okay, this is really freaking cool because I can brand them. I can put titles in them. I can change the border color. I can, you know, put the CSS files of all the clients in there so all the images match their branding. I mean, it's just, you know, those type of things is just like, okay, this solved a huge freaking pipeline clog for us.
What model are you using for image generation, Terry?
Let me look here real quick.
Is it Claude or is it OpenAI?
Oh,
is it
no,
Gemini?
it's not.
It's got to be Nano Banana. That's the best.
It's like
Well, Nano Banana's in there, but
I was gonna say
Tyler's using that.
you're not
Yeah.
using Nano Banana. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're using like, I don't know, like one of the there's a couple other ones, right? But like Nano Banana is like, I think definitely the best.
It's so good.
It's bananas. I
Yeah,
mean,
the ones
it's like
Pro and stuff
It
like
is.
that. Like they're not bad, but definitely Nano Banana is the
one of the tips I found, and I have lots of conversations with all the AIs. I'm not tied to one. I mean, it's like 2 or 3, but how I've
okay. So I'm sorry, Flux 2 Pro is the default.
That one's a really good one too.
I've got Flux 2, Seedstream, Imagen.
Okay. Imagen 4.
Yeah, Imagen 4, Ideogram.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got the
those
best
ones
ones.
are in there. So,
There's like 5 that are, in my opinion, the standout. I've tested like 20 or 30 of them or something, and those definitely are up there.
so Nano Banana, I need to.
Oh yeah, that's by far.
for
Okay.
sure. So what's
All
the
right.
other one? Andrew said Imagen 4 and Flux 2 Pro.
Yeah, the Flux series. Flux has a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Really good. You also want to equip a image editor and image upscaler when you're doing your pipelines. That way you can have a review process that reviews the image, and then it picks what's wrong with the image, reprocesses with like a prompt, and then submits it to the model that ingests the existing image and then edits that image. So that's another thing to extend.
Yeah, Flux is definitely the cheapest also.
Yes, that's why I use it too. It's cheap.
Well, one of the aha moments I had with chatting with all the GPTs about images, and it was like, this is so stupidly clear. Why didn't I realize it before? Because we're always operating in our own little cave, and we don't think about why. Like how do we choose an image? Like to your point, Terry, you go to deposit photos and you're looking for a roofing thing or hail damage or what have you, and you just pick one and like, well, why? Or Elisabeth picks one, like, Elisabeth, why did you pick this one?
Mhm.
Well, because it looks right. What makes it look right? And Elisabeth, who's very right brain, talks to me who's left brain. I don't understand how a brain works, right? So like, okay, so every time I need an image, hey Elisabeth, what image do I need for this page? And she'll tell me like, so now what I logically came up with after chatting with the AIs is what should be in the image is the visual entities that are represented in the content.
Yep.
Right. So that's so clear. And I don't have a bunch. So I did one at Rockstars, and it was for one of Bradley Benner's client. Well, Bradley Benner was in the audience, so I built one for him. It was basically tree trimming in Dallas. And it had a guy on a ladder with a chainsaw, and then the safety strap and the high-vis shirt, and there was branches on the ground, and the house looked really good, and there was nothing else in there. There wasn't like footballs or pools or what have you, or plumbers sitting around. It was one guy on a ladder, so it picked out the perfect visual entities and put them in the image. And once you form that and you give it to, and I was using Nano Banana Pro, like, whoa, okay. I think Elisabeth would be impressed with that one, you know.
We'll see. I'm pretty picky.
I know, but it was better than going to deposit photos. I mean, think about how much time, and it doesn't cost anything really. I mean, it's pennies, but you spend, or VA spends 10 minutes to look for an image.
Mhm.
And they go back, and Elisabeth goes, no, try again, another 10 minutes. So then you're talking half an hour. Then you have to optimize it, give it the right file name, got to compress it down. Now it's the wrong dimensions. So all this stuff, you're usually talking a half an hour to get one image in a page,
Yeah.
right?
That's why it was always such a big freaking bottleneck. It was just like,
Mhm.
we can write 30 pieces of content in an hour and have it go through Grammarly and be perfectly well, but then it takes us 4 hours to get 30 images.
Yep.
Yeah. So
and you gotta hope that you can find that half relevant image, because if it's
especially one that you haven't used before after 14 years.
And the same image is used across 100 other dental sites, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
That's
recognize that image. Oh, and then,
Okay,
and then
so
you can,
it definitely. So now I have involved. Let me see here. So I have Nano Banana, Nano Banana 2, and Nano Banana Pro in my.
Just Pro. That's the only one you need.
Okay.
And then make sure when you're doing your API, you have the option for 1K, 2K, 4K.
definitely.
And it's the pricing goes up. You understand, I guess, like the difference of like the resolution, but
Mhm.
I find that 2K is basically all I need, unless you're doing something like a really big image of some kind for a non-website.
Okay.
Andrew, what were you talking about, the AI, like the analysis of the image, and then
Yeah, you just create a pipeline for once an image generates, you need to interpret the image. So you have an interpreter that looks for artifacts and identifies different things. And then you can use image models that are meant to edit existing images to then fix up the image. You can also test just recreating a prompt or something. I haven't found a perfect way to do it. The most success I've had is an image editing tool that will then edit the image to fix the little things that are wrong.
So it edits it, not regenerates.
It regenerates. It makes another image, but think of it. I imagine it's the same technology as prompt caching. You're essentially just caching the image and elements of the image, and then you get. It's trying to identify the blocks that it should then remove and change.
So it's not the same as using a reference image to generate
It's very similar. It's going to be very, very similar, but it's not generating the actual back end of what's happening with the AI. It's not the same thing as using a reference image. The reference image takes the image and then interprets that into text directive, while the image editing is actually trying to take straight up that image as much as possible.
What models do the image editing that you're talking about?
Let me check real quick. I got to go. I have another podcast.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, yep. So here, without further ado, get your tickets. So this thing's going to be incredible. There's, the stuff that people are going to learn and do and build is just going to be phenomenal. And get your tickets. Don't miss out on this sucker. I guarantee that this one's going to be the best one out of the last 6. So anything else last minute, Miss Elisabeth? This was a great conversation, guys. I love these, especially digging into other images, because I haven't even gone into video yet. That's a whole nother freaking, rabbit hole. So
I was going to throw a nugget in there because it's something I built last week, which I've been meaning to build for at least 5 years. And we'll do this. Right? How many of you, and you can, I guess the people here and people who are watching, how many of you, when you write content, you got AI write really good piece of content, what's the process for getting it onto the website, right? You put it on the web, you put it to Google Docs probably, email it manually to a client, say, please review, they comment, they make changes, they email you back, and then your VA goes, okay, I'll put these changes in, it's good, maybe you send back for a final review, and then you take it from Google Docs, paste it into the website, and like hit publish, right? That's typically how many people do it.
But we also have Grammarly Pro. Everything, nothing through our system without Grammarly.
So here's what I want to challenge people to think about is, and this is just a mental challenge because how you do it in the end is ultimately up to you. But the way I did mine is if I have a client, let's say it's a dental client, they need to review content. So if I wasn't, so challenge yourself to ask the AIs, what's the most efficient way? And don't tell it you put it into a Google Doc first. Tell it, I've got to get this piece of content reviewed by my dental client and put it on the website. What's the most efficient way of doing this? And it will probably tell you, because the way I wanted to do it in the past was, well, push it up to WordPress in draft and give your client access to it. But then the client needs to log into WordPress and navigate through that. So, all right, well, let's just build like if you guys ever use PageProof, whatever you may have, it can basically gives you like a PDF that you can edit and pass comments back. So I built that last week, in fact. So someone goes to their example.com website, logs in with their ID, and all they see is a text editor. And the client can go in there, make changes, they can add comments, they can improve it, and then it's done. So it never goes to Google Docs, never needs to be emailed. It's right there on the website. The client approves, it gets published. Boom. So it's like I say, you're only limited by your imagination.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's what's so cool about it too. Is just like I said, just use it for ideas. Have a conversation with it. But start a different project for each one. That's another. I talked to a guy the other day, and he's got everything in one big freaking chat. I'm like, oh, you need to break this thing up. So, like, spring training is a project, Salterra is a project, university is a project. So, and take time to build these projects out, personalize them. Introduce it to them. Have Claude go scrape the website and tell me who this person is. And then once you have that set up in your projects, now you can go back in that project anytime and write content, create images, scan web pages, whatever. And it just becomes really, really, really efficient. So, but anyways, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys popping in.
Good stuff.
Looking forward to seeing you guys here in about 6 weeks, I think.
My gosh, yeah.
It's coming up quick. So, anyways, everybody reach out to Elisabeth and I if you got any questions. We'll be back here probably again this week. We're actually going to have a couple a week, I believe, just to get more introductions made to some of the people presenting, especially some of the people that, our peeps haven't really heard of or know too much about. But there's more information at spring training, and looking forward to seeing everybody. Thanks.
Thanks all. Bye.